Hello and welcome to Beaverdale Books. Thanks so much for joining us for our book talk tonight. Before we begin, I want to mention a couple of the many upcoming events that we have planned, and I hope you'll take a minute to look at all the posters that we worked so hard to produce. Anyway, we've got a very exciting fall with lots and lots of authors. We have a special ticketed event tomorrow night with Nick Offerman. Tickets are still available. It's family friendly and it's going to be super fun. He's really targeting families, hopefully having parents work with their kids on woodworking projects, and I think they're going to make a slapstick.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what the plan is. Then Hank Philippi Ryan, who is a mystery writer, will be at Central Library as part of their fall author series on Thursday night at 7 p.m. And she's going to have her latest book, All This Could Be Yours. And you can find all the details on our website or pick up a flyer at the register. Now, on to tonight's program. When her father is injured on the family horse ranch, Charlotte Trevino rushes home to Zearing, Texas, the small town she put in her rearview mirror years ago. Her brother and father insist that everything is under control, but the recent odd and costly run of bad luck on the ranch tells a different story. Sharon Clark is a romantic suspense author hailing from good old Des Moines, where she never outgrew her enormous imagination and continues to feed both her hopeless romantic heart and her villain wannabe brain. An avid reader from a very young age, Sharon still enjoys living vicariously through the heroines in adventure novels, falling in love again and again through romances and getting the tar scared out of her now and again. After attending the University of Northern Iowa, Sharon met her husband Andrew, who carried in the cake, and together they have raised 3 pretty cool humans and a handful of dogs. Please join me in a warm welcome for Sharon Clark.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here again. I appreciate everybody showing up. It's always fun and exciting to get something new out in the world. This one is based off of a character from the first novel. Charlotte is Katie's best friend, and she is a no-nonsense little firecracker kind of gal that she's 5'5" and full of fire. She doesn't put up with anybody's nonsense. And that was a lot of fun to write, because that is not me. So it is a little bit more of a romance than the first novel was, I think. A little less of the suspense, but I definitely love the chemistry between Charlotte and her high school boyfriend, Jason, who broke her heart many years before. Their banter is a lot of fun, and that's the kind of stuff that I chuckle while I'm writing. That it's always very fun to imagine that you make the head motions and you know how they're moving and all of that. It's a lot of fun to do that. My villain in this one is, I could see him clear as day, and this is going to be totally ridiculous. I don't know if anybody remembers the show Fairly Odd Parents as a cartoon, but my villain is kind of a taller version of Doug Dimmadome, if anybody remembers him. The little cowboy with a red hat and great big mustache, and that's how I envision him, but he's a little less comical, I suppose, in the book, but that's how my brain works, so don't know about that. I did a lot of research, ridiculous stuff that I will probably never use in my life, and it's not even, I learned how to break a horse, a wild horse, how you get him to put wear the saddle. Talked to a gal in England who grew up with horses, somebody that I met online, and she was very helpful. I learned how to blow things up. And that was fun too. There's all kinds of stuff, people you can talk to online.
That sounds a little dangerous.
Well, there are police officers and fire professionals, firefighters that specifically are online to answer questions of authors. And they know that it's not necessarily, going to be used nefariously. So they were very open to questions, and they were very good with explaining how things worked for me. I also was able to speak to a former DEA agent. He's now retired, but he answered a lot of questions for me as well. And basically I was like, here's what's going on. And I told him what I was doing. He was like, yep, that's wrong. That's not how that works. I'm like, okay, great. I'm glad I talked to you first then. So I learned a lot about that as well. So that was fun. I think that's some of the best parts of writing fiction is the research, that you get to learn all kinds of things that you will never use again in your life. But although I did learn with the previous book how to escape zip ties and duct tape, so hopefully I won't ever have to use that, but I know how at least. I'm not sure what else. Does anybody want to know anything, any specific questions that we can tell? Otherwise I can read the first chapter or something. I'm not sure how we want to do this. Yes, sir.
Talk about the way you profile your characters. You pick someone, you even go out and do research and find photographs.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little about that.
So I have an idea in my head of what the character's personality is, and then I do spend a ridiculous amount of time scrolling and looking through photos and trying to find that face that matches what I have in my head. And then that way when I have that representation, it makes it a little bit easier for me to describe their features or how they would look, how they behave, and I can see it in my head when I have that representation. That's a lot of fun. I definitely spend way too much time doing that, though, a lot of time. So I do a little bit of plotting out the personalities of the characters, and I think I've said this before, that before I started writing, I always thought the authors who said, well, I just go where the characters take me, I always thought that was ridiculous, but it's absolutely true, because you have an idea, and you're like, this is what we're going to do, and they're like, no. You start doing conversation, you start doing dialogue or something, and just, they don't want to do what you're telling them to, so.
They're telling you.
Yes, and I have had times where I can't get the story to move forward, and I don't know why, and so what I have to do then is go back to like the last decision and take a different path, and then almost every time it gets me through that spot. So that's where I'm saying they tell me what they want to do, and they reveal themselves to me as we move along. And I know I sound like a lunatic, but that's how it is. Yes.
So, I'll call you mine. I have not read.
Okay.
And one of the characters then is the basis for I'll Call You Home.
Mm-hmm.
But it isn't necessarily a sequel.
No, it's more of a spin-off. So it can be read as a standalone.
So then, did you have this sequel in mind when you wrote the first one, or did this character just start telling you?
That's more, okay. So I started writing for National Novel Writing Month back in 2017, and that's where I'll Call You Mine started. So every year I had to come up with a different story idea, and that's kind of how Charlotte popped up you know, you have fun writing certain characters because the side characters are sometimes a lot more fun even than the main characters. There is one in I'll Call You Home that I'm in love with, and I love him dearly, and I would love to be able to do a spin-off with him as the main love interest, but I don't know if I can. If anybody knows who the actor T.J. Miller is, he was in like the Deadpool movies, and he did the voice in Big Hero 6. He was the voice of the rich kid with all the fun toys, and look him up. You'll see. He's curly red hair and great big smile, and he just has a...
Wasn't he an employee?
No, that's a different guy.
Okay, sorry.
But yeah, he's kind of goofy, and he's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun writing him. But yeah, Charlotte just had a lot of potential because she was so strong, and she was so vocal and very loyal. She was sticking up for her best friend the whole time, and yeah, I just needed, and I knew she was a little thing. She was not very big, and so I liked that idea of her fighting her own battles. So, yes.
Okay, you were here not that long ago.
Correct.
So you've had a very ambitious writing here, and tell us, is there a third one coming out soon? Talk a little bit about that.
I have the third book in the series is not completed yet. It is almost, it's right up to the climax, and I know where it's going. I just haven't sat down and written it yet. There is actually a planned fourth book as well that I have partially written, but I haven't looked at it in a couple of years, so I'm not quite sure where that's going to go. Since I'll Call You Mine was published, I did spend quite a bit of time editing with my publisher, Melange Books up in Minnesota. And it was already written, but then we went through the fine-tuning after I'll Call You Mine was out. And now I'm going to have to focus on the third one. I don't have a choice now because I'm not being distracted by other things. But yeah, it's a planned series of 4. I have plenty of other stories that could potentially be published in the future. I haven't looked at them yet. I want very closely. I have one that's completely finished and another one that just needs to close the end, but they're not romantic suspense. One is a paranormal romance and the other one is a fantasy, which that one was a lot of fun to write too. Again, when you're writing for NaNoWriMo, which I did for many, many years, you have a word count goal, so you just kind of everything comes out and you have to make sense of it later. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing, we have a writing group in November. It's called Inkathon, and it's basically the same sort of thing where you have a goal of 50,000 words, and I'm looking forward to doing that again because it's where all my friends are.
So you gather
do.
together.
We do. It starts with a kickoff at the Johnston Library, and then we do a write all night on that first Friday, where everybody brings a potluck dish, and you sit down about 5:30, and you write until 11:30, and we usually get about 40 or 50 people in the room.
Wow.
And it's a lot of fun, and you get to catch up with people and meet new ones. And in the past, we had people just kind of show up that we never saw before, we've never seen since, but they come in and they write and they eat and then they leave. So it's a really neat experience, and I'm so glad that I got involved in it. Has absolutely changed my life. I never would have thought that I would have one book published, much less 2. So just get out there and meet your people. Try it.
And is that event open to the public?
Yes, absolutely, and I can give you information on that later if you want.
Yeah, or tell it for anyone on Facebook.
So the event is called Inkathon. It has taken the place for us, at least, of National Novel Writing Month, because that is now defunct. We are part of a local writing group, the Central Iowa Authors, the CIA, and we have online meetings, we have coffee meetings, we get together as often as we can. Currently we are doing Preptober, and we're meeting every Sunday morning at Caribou on Ingersoll, and start prepping what your story is going to be for November. The gals who have put the stuff together already have everything planned out. There's a theme, and you can earn stickers or cards or something for reaching a word count goal or coming to different events. And if you, let's see, do we have, I'm looking at you, Jamie. Do we have the CIA still on Facebook?
It is on Facebook.
Okay.
I think you get an invitation to Discord there.
Okay.
But most of the information's on Discord.
On Discord, right. Okay.
But if you find it on Facebook, it'll get you there.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah, and it starts November 1st and goes to November 30th at midnight, and it's just a lot of fun. So much fun, and everybody is welcome. The more the merrier, for sure. So, yes, ma'am.
So now that you've written 2, what have you learned to do differently or better writing the second book? And what have you learned that you'll do differently or better for the next one?
I learned from the first book, writing the first book, that I use too many words, and I need to be a little bit more succinct in how I say things. There are so many extra words because I write the way I talk, and I use a lot of words when I talk too. So it just kind of has helped me pare down dialogue and descriptions and extra words that really don't add to the story. I've learned to take out scenes that don't move the story forward, but just was something that was fun to write. For the next book, I definitely need to work a little bit more on building in the background for getting to the climax, so that it's not. I got some feedback that my villain in the first book was a little obvious, and so I need to work a little harder on hiding those and doing my red herrings and stuff. So there's always learning to do. I think that even the big sellers, the big names, I think they're always still learning themselves, because every story comes out differently, and you learn something different from each one. So. And I don't know, does anybody else have anything?
How long did it take you to write
Either one of them?
both of them?
Okay. Well, I'll Call You Mine started in 2017, and I worked on that in that first NaNoWriMo, and then there was a springtime one. I can't even remember what it's called now, but I wrote it during that one, and then also during the following NaNoWriMo. So I ended up with like 130 words in this novel, and romance novels are not that many. It's about 70, 75. So I worked on that book for 5 years probably, and it took a lot of editors, and I learned a lot from editing as well. The second book, because I did learn a lot from the editors that I worked with, didn't quite take as long. I want to say that was maybe 2 to 3 from having the book finished to having it out in the world. I think it was probably maybe 2 years, 3 years. I'd have to look. But each book that I have written, each story that I have written, generally takes about a year for me to get it done before anybody else sees it. And then after that is when you get notes back from the editor and you cry, and then you sit down and you do the work to make it better. And that's generally how it is that you get, your heart hurts when you get those edits back, because this is your baby. And
isn't that also when your skin thickens?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But it's still, you know, you're so proud of this thing, and you put it out there, and they're like, yeah, no, this needs to change, and this needs to change, and do this. And I've been lucky enough to have editors who have been kind, at least, haven't been mean to me and told me I should stop writing or anything. But yeah, and then I get sad for a couple of minutes, but then it's just really easy to, okay, now I know what I need to do, and I just sit down and I work on the edits and go through it all again. It's actually, the editing part is almost as much fun as the first writing, but I would not have thought I would have liked that, but I do. It's good. It's good. All right. I don't know. Anything else? What are we?
We can if you want to read a little bit, or we can sign books.
Okay. We can. Let's go ahead and read a little bit. Why not? I haven't done that before. All right. So let me go ahead and sit down for this. So this is I'll call you home, and I will apologize ahead of time if I'm not using the microphone. I'm so sorry. I'll apologize ahead of time if I pause or stumble. I'm afraid that I'm going to be reading and I'm going to be like, oh no, there's a typo. So if I do come across anything, I'll try not to be obvious about it. All right, so this is chapter 1, Charlotte. The heels of Charlotte Trevino's shoes clicked loudly on the tile floor of the hospital, keeping time with her racing heart. Less than 24 hours ago, she'd gotten a call that made everything else stand still. Her father had been injured and was in the hospital. She dropped everything and took the first flight from her current home in San Francisco to her childhood home in Texas. It had been a few years since she'd been back, and the guilt of not being there for her dad had her stomach in knots. When she finally reached the room number her brother had texted her, the door was wide open, and she barreled in. Her larger-than-life dad looked so small, hooked up to a variety of beeping machines, his arm in a sling, and she couldn't stop the tears that sprang to her eyes. Dad. He was sitting up in the bed, his wavy white hair longer than she remembered, and his brown eyes popped wide when he saw her. Charlie girl, what are you doing here? Where else would I be? She kissed his cheek. How are you feeling? Charlotte, what the hell? Her brother Brandon walked in, carrying a fresh cup of coffee and a newspaper. I would have driven to the airport to pick you up if you'd have told me you were coming. She waved him off, but wrapped her arms around his waist for a hug. Being barely 5'5" when Brandon was 6 foot, it was all she could manage. I didn't want to put anything more on your plate, so I just rented a car. It's no big deal. Brandon shook his head. Of course you did. Still wasn't necessary. Can't you just let people do things for you? When I'm fully capable of doing them myself? Not on your life. She smiled at her dad. Wonder where I learned that. Arthur Trevino chuckled and wagged a finger at his daughter. You got me there, Charlotte Rose. Stubborn as a mule, and I proudly take full responsibility. Perching on the edge of the bed, Charlotte held his hand and looked up at Brandon. So, who's going to tell me what happened? The two men shared a look she couldn't quite read, and she narrowed her eyes. All right, what's going on? Go ahead, Dad, tell her. Brandon crossed his arms. This is all you, old man. Quiet, you. Arthur patted his daughter's hand and shrugged. I was out for a ride around the property at the end of the day, and something spooked the horse just as we were getting back to the paddock. Threw me on my ass. On your head, more like. Brandon nudged Arthur, trying to lighten the mood, but Charlotte wasn't fooled. His smile didn't reach his eyes, pinched at the edges from lack of sleep and an overabundance of worry. Old Graceful here ended up dislocating his shoulder and bruising a few ribs. But they're not sure his heart didn't do a little dance, too. She'd been so busy planning her flight and lining up a substitute to cover her kindergarten classes that Charlotte hadn't allowed herself to be scared, and it seemed that moment was when her entire system decided to jump in with both feet. Your heart? Seriously? Like a heart attack or what? Nothing like that. Your brother is just being melodramatic. Arthur narrowed his eyes. It was nothing, barely a blip. Tears blurred her vision, and she was having trouble catching her breath. If she hadn't already been sitting on the edge of Arthur's bed, her knees might have gone soft under her. Instead, she squeezed her dad's hand and tried to sniffle back all the what-ifs that flooded her brain. Damn it, Dad, you're barely into your 60s, and I expect you to be around for at least another 20 years. You hear me? You've got to be more careful. Throwing his hands in the air, Brandon scoffed. That is exactly what I've been telling him. It's time to step back and think about retiring. With a snort at his son, Arthur patted Charlotte's knee. Oh, come on now, darling. You know I'm far too stubborn to go anywhere just yet. You'll see. Give me a couple weeks and I'll be up turning cartwheels. Just then the nurse came in to take some vitals and give him some medication, so Charlotte dragged her brother into the hall. Tell me the truth, Bran. How bad was it? I know he's not telling me everything. He ran his hand through his shaggy dark hair and leaned against the wall. Not gonna lie, Char, I was pretty scared. He thinks the injuries are the most concerning part of all of this, but I really think he was lucky he didn't have a full heart attack. If Doc Angus hadn't still been there to call the ambulance, well, I don't know. But he's in the best heart hospital in southern Texas, and they said he should recover just fine. He has some artery buildup, but not enough that he needs surgery, which is a good thing, because the old man's cranky enough that he has to take it easy and relinquish a lot of his duties. Yeah, well, he's going to have to rest, probably longer than a couple weeks. She tapped a finger against her chin and paced the hallway. Maybe we can give Hank and Calvin some more responsibilities and convince Milo to come out after school, too. It quickly became obvious that Brandon was trying not to meet her eyes, so Charlotte laid her hand on his arm. What? I'll find out one way or another, so just spill it. Well, we had to let Calvin go about 6 months ago. Chores and duties were redistributed then, mostly between Hank and me, so we're already stretched pretty thin. Oh, no. Charlotte had always liked Calvin. He was around her age and had always been quick with a smile or a joke. They'd taken him on as a ranch hand during her senior year of high school, and he'd been around every time she came home, keeping her company while they worked. Maybe he wasn't the most reliable employee and had been a little mouthy at times, but he was good with the animals. In fact, Cal was the one who had helped her break the rowdiest colts once they were old enough. I'll miss seeing them around the ranch. What happened? Brandon shrugged. Oh, you know how he was. It just got to the point where he was late more often than not, was getting into arguments with Hank and Dad, wasn't getting shit done. So when money got tight and we realized we had to let someone go, he made the most sense. Turns out he has a rich uncle who offered him a job up near San Antonio. It's been tough, but it was best for everyone all around. Gaping at him, Charlotte tried to make sense of what he was saying. Wait, back up. What do you mean when money got tight? T&M Ranch has always been able to take care of their employees. There had to be some mistake, but before she could ask any more questions, the nurse slipped by and Brandon scrambled to get back in the room. Charlotte could only follow, compiling a mental list of questions for her brother once they were home. But for the moment, she just wanted to relish the time with her little family. I think that's a good enough. That's the beginning of I'll Call You Home, kind of introducing a lot of the main characters. Second chapter, we get to meet some more, so
Alrighty.
yeah.
Okay, so let's sign some books.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks for coming.
You bet, thanks.